Picture this, you're at your local course and there's a shot that you can just about reach with a full power drive in normal wind. But boom, today it's a headwind. What are you going to do? Well, welcome to how to throw into a headwind. The first thing to think about is disc selection. Number one, weight. This right here is 163 grams and this is 175 grams. The 175 gram one is going to be more resistant to the wind. Just because if you think you're throwing a paper plate, that thing is getting destroyed by the wind. Same thing as a lightweight disc. So get rid of that because it's just going to be affected more by the wind. And then you need to have a faster disc. This is because when the wind's coming towards you, as it is where I'm about to throw, the disc will go less far because of the wind resistance. So you need to account for that. So the more wind, obviously, the more you need to disc up. And don't be worried about being embarrassed on the course. I've even myself have been like, I'm going to throw a mid-range because I'm a big time player. When in reality, I need to, let's say, throw my Firebird, even if I don't think I should be doing that. Even if I'm too scared to be doing that. And then also, you need to go for more overstable discs. More wind resistance means more turn for the disc. So it's going to turn more than you expect. So you need to account for these things by having a heavier, faster, and then more overstable disc. Discs that are overstable and discs that are faster than slower discs are, all of them, more wobble resistant. So in the wind, this is a big factor because any wobble is just going to be exaggerated by the wind. If I was to throw an unstable putter, one, it's a putter, it's not going to go anywhere, but two, it's probably going to wobble more commonly than a faster, more overstable disc, just in general. So make sure that you're getting faster, more overstable discs. So if I was to take my slightly unstable mid-range, it'd end up, even if I throw it right, getting chopped up by the wind later on. So that one's turned into a roller. So you can see that disc has got less torque resistance than maybe this Quake. And so it's been chopped up by the wind, but also it's got loads of turn, way more than expected. Especially if I throw that late on in the flight, you'll see sometimes with discs, they just kind of catch the wind and just carry off into unknown places. So I'm going to throw a more overstable disc and we'll see what happens. Now, I was able to throw that with less wobble, and then also it had a pretty net neutral flight. Like it wasn't overly crazy, and so that's a key example. The next thing to think about is nose angle. If you're having any of the wind get under the flight plate, then it's just going to do crazy things to it, especially with big wind. Your disc is just going to go off into Narnia. So you need a slightly negative disc angle because your launch angle is going to be slightly positive. So you want it to be neutral, flying into the air, so that the wind can't affect any of the flight plate. And then your disc will probably be okay. Otherwise, it will just start going off into weird directions. So to throw nose down, at least for the backhand, you need to have your wrist curled round and down so that in the reach back, it's down. And then you'll throw down. If it's up and it's kind of wobbly and loose, then it will just go into this nose up position and it'll not be good. That's why you also need to stay on the same plane. That's really important. Stay on the same plane because then, boom, you can control your angles a lot better. You control them with the torso. And if you're bringing if your swing isn't exactly flat, then you'll probably end up like swooping like this, and then boom. Even if I've got my nose down, I'm still throwing nose up. And so keep that wrist down so that it's held down in the backswing, and then you should be able to throw nose down. So let's put it together. Low laser beam, overstable disc, low shot, slight hyzer, nose down. It's not really been affected by the wind. often, well, in principle, the wind is less strong by the lower ground. So if you can pierce through the wind and throw direct shots that also have to travel less, then you can kind of muscle your way and get a lot further than if you were to throw these high shots. That's why in high wind situations, you need to throw low shots if you want to get any distance. And then looking at spin. So this gyroscopic effect on a disc, the more spin there is, the more resistance it has to moving, the more resistance it has to wind. So you want to get more spin. Now, how are you going to do that on a disc golf throw like this? Well, you probably want to throw as smooth as possible. This entails you also probably not worrying about the wind. You're going to throw as if there is no wind. And how are you going to do this? So for me, a pre-shot routine in a headwind, knowing exactly where you want your disc to go, is really important. It's quite windy now, and so I know that my disc is probably not going to be how it usually is. It's probably going to be affected by it. So if, let's say, I want the disc to land by the left-hand post over there. So I know what distance that is, and I'm going to pick a point around 60% into the flight where I know that the disc from then on is just going to fade towards there. So I've got that point. Then I go, okay, well, it's probably going to be, let's say, flat. If I'm trying to throw a reasonably flat shot, I could throw a hyzer. It's probably more consistent in winds because the disc will just get to the ground quicker. You don't want to be throwing loads of turn because then it's just unpredictable, because more wind exaggerates how much turn your disc gets. So it's important to try and have these straight, overstable disc shots. So if I want the disc to be flat at that point in time, which is quite difficult, I'm going to know, okay, well, how much is this going to flip? Okay, well, maybe if I get it on this angle, does that look correct? Is it going to get to flat by then and then fade? Well, yes, probably. So I need to run a slight hyzer at there. So now all I need to think about is, okay, I'm just going to throw, I know where I'm going to run up because it's going to be the same every time. And I'm going to throw that slight hyzer. And then I don't need to think about the rest of the shot because I already know if I just execute my form, it's going to be better. If I just execute my form, it's going to be perfect. And so I can just rely on being smooth and I'll think positive thoughts. And so because I can focus on my angle, it will have a positive effect on my throw, because people struggle because throwing with the correct angle in a headwind is really difficult and it's really important. Didn't get as much turn as I thought, but the wind has kind of died down. But you can see what I mean. I see a lot of people throwing putters into headwinds and they just get wobbled like nothing else. Just throw a zone or something overstable with lots of torque resistance, because there's no reason to throw a putter into a big headwind like this. I'm all right at throwing non-wobbly shots, but this into a headwind, throwing it is just asking too much, especially in a tournament scenario. That has gone literally as good as I could have hoped, and it's just putting unnecessary lower percentage shots out there. Now the final point with a forehand or backhand is you need to follow through. This is really key, to be slow and smooth and accelerate and then focus on making sure that you're following through, because the worst thing you can do into a headwind is not throw your proper form and not commit to the shot, because then it will eat you up. So this has been how to throw into a headwind. I really hope you enjoyed the video and found it useful. If you want to do what you want to do, if you have any comments about anything, let me know if I've got anything right or wrong. But thank you so much for watching the B-Hole Disc Golf YouTube channel, and I will see you guys in another video soon. And peace.